so many of you, millions and millions and millions and millions of you follow her online and share her stuff every day. She's also multiple New York Times best-selling author and also an amazing friend. Dr. Nicola Pera, thank you for being here. Wow.
Oh gosh, Jamie, thank you for having me. I have to say I was quite moved seeing just all of you on the screen, in your presence. I have chills. So thank you for this true honor of being here, not only to support you, but to be here in this beautiful, beautiful community.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. And by the way, when you were holding up Worthy, look how good it looks next to How to Be the Love You Seek. How to be, look at that.
They go together.
Look at that. It's picking up the purple. They look good together.
Shine. They sure do.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Oh, my goodness. First of all, do you have time for a couple questions while you're here?
I sure do. I sure do.
Okay, good. I just, I still, the numbers are staggering because most of my life, I always felt like I wasn't enough. I always felt like I was unworthy, but I used to feel like I was alone in that, right? And a little over 3 years ago, when I became obsessed with studying self-worth and just looking at the numbers, I'm like, oh my gosh, over 80% of women do not believe they're enough. 73% of men feel inadequate and not enough. Why do you think so many people don't feel worthy?
You know, it's so funny. Even just you hearing the timeline of 3 years ago, I have a memory. I think it was the first time I ever met you in person, Jamie, and I was at Lisa Bilyeu's house, and it was you there and Daniel Canty there. And these were people that I had watched, admired, right? Imagined, I think, as many of you probably in attendance here, that they must feel worthy. And the memory is we were sitting around talking, and I was just feeling unworthy of really even being in your presence. And you initiated, and it was right after Believe It came out. And you initiated a conversation where essentially all of us ended up going around this room acknowledging how unworthy we felt. And for me, that was so affirming to some extent, because what I was seeing and hearing was so reflective of course, what I was working with many clients to deal with, their deep-rooted feelings of unworthiness. So now I'm like mind blown. It doesn't seem to matter what we have, what we do, what our title is. All of us feel unworthy. So why is that? And what I come to understand really generally, the way that we think and believe, the things that we believe about ourselves are directly impacted by the things in early childhood that we were made to think or made to believe about ourselves. And of course, Jim Kwik, hearing him speak, what did he call himself? The boy with the broken brain, or what was he called, I should say, right? All of these messaging, and more so, when we didn't have our needs met in childhood, we didn't have the level of attunement that we needed from a caregiver who was present to meet our needs, who was able to soothe or comfort us when we were upset, who was interested in getting to know and accepting exactly who it was that we are. In childhood, when that doesn't happen, we develop this deep core belief that is something wrong with us, that we are intrinsically unworthy of that kind of care or of that kind of treatment. Now, I want to speak to the many of us who had very well-intentioned parents who probably broke a lot of the habits, a lot of the cycles from their own childhood, yet without the resources, without the information, with their own trauma, they weren't able to show up and meet our needs the way we need it. And then we carry that unworthiness belief with us throughout life. We become hypersensitive to any clues, cues, any affirmations, validations of that belief in our environment. At the same time, we actively filter out and delete any evidence of our unworthiness. And I share this because it's so important. If we become aware, as many of us are, that we do feel deeply unworthy, it's so important to begin to separate our worth from that belief, to understand that that belief isn't reality, so that we can begin the inspirational and empowering journey, of course, of creating worthiness in our lives.
So good. What actions, Dr. Nicola Pera, what actions can we take to feel more worthy in our lives?
So getting really practical, and I've heard a lot of us speakers here today kind of cite this idea of, right, we need to act in worthiness, act as if we already believe it to be true. So really practically, especially because so much of our lack of worthiness comes from unmet needs. This could be as simple as first thing in the morning, before you even get out of bed, taking a moment to just check in with yourself. It might even be while you're stretching before you even get out of your bed in the morning, and giving yourself that moment of your full attention. That shift in focus does two things. It shows you that you are an individual who has needs, and then it shows you that you are worthy of prioritizing those needs first thing in the day. Second important step then, each and every moment you do show up for yourself. You do hit that pause and you say, you know what, the day can wait for just 1 second. I'm going to take a moment in presence for myself. Or maybe you take some much needed rest. You decline an invitation because your body needs to rest. Or maybe you reach out for support. Or maybe you just simply allow yourself to accept how you feel without shaming yourself. Each and every time you show up in action, embodying that worthiness, I want you to do 2 things. I want you to notice. I don't want you to allow yourself to minimize it, to say it was so small, why bother noticing? Nothing really changed yet. And I want you to celebrate that. And along the way, I want you to be patient. These beliefs for many of us took a lifetime of validation and are so deep rooted that they will take time. They will not change overnight. But when we show up in this embodiment and when we celebrate ourselves, we're beginning to tell our subconscious mind that we are worthy of being a priority in our lives.
Woo! And that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Big
It's
deal.
something we could do right now. How can we do difficult or hard things even when we hear those thoughts that we aren't good enough?
Yes. And I love another theme kind of coming up today is the protective nature of all of these critical thoughts, the ego voice, as I talk about often. And it is protective, right? There is a reason we are habitually telling ourselves these stories. And a big reason, from my perspective, is driven by our physical bodies, our nervous system in particular, which feels a false sense of comfort, of security in the predictability, even if it's the outcome that, of course, we want to avoid. Each and every time we try to do something new, definitely when we try to do something hard or difficult, our nervous system stress response gets activated. So again, understanding that those thoughts in that moment are not truth, learning how to observe those thoughts instead of reacting to them practically looks like noticing when you have those not good enough thoughts, and then making the most empowered choice that you can make for yourself. Because again, as many of us have been stating, we can't stop the thought. They are well-worn neural pathways in our mind already, validated by a lifetime of very painful experiences. What we can do is we can remove our focus of attention. Because the more time we spend thinking those thoughts of how unworthy or, impossible it is for us to do this new hard thing, the more likely we are to avoid the action, not to do it. And then we want to practice noticing our thoughts, removing our attention, and showing up anyway. And what we're doing on the deepest level, and this is the most empowering part, I think, of this journey, is we are building the ability to do hard things, to tolerate the stress of doing new hard things. And the byproduct of that is we develop self-confidence. We develop a trust in ourselves. And then ultimately, in my opinion at least, we are on our way to developing a true sense of worthiness.
So good. I know every time. What can you do? Because, oh gosh, so many people have this in their environment, in their household, in their peer group. What do you do if someone tells you that your dreams or your desires aren't realistic?
So first thing I want to say, and I want to emphasize this, realistic, right? That concept is not an objective marker, right? We cannot all get in a room and all say, okay, we can all vote. This is realistic and this isn't. And there will not be a unanimous opinion. Really simply, it's subjective. Every single one of us will have a different view on what it is that's realistic. And more so, what we will believe to be realistic is more often influenced by what we or someone else has done in the past. So really simply, if they haven't done it, the person that we're sharing our dream, our hope, our wish with, we might very likely hear that it's not something that's realistic because they're talking from their vantage point, from their perspective on themselves. And I understand as we go to create any change in our life, as we go to be vulnerable and share our desires, our dreams with someone else, it is a very vulnerable thing to do. And we can easily take then their feedback that this is unrealistic, we should stop right now before we even start, maybe even, and we can take it personally. And so I really want to kind of affirm, acknowledge, share, tell, with everyone here that people's ideas about what is realistic is more of a reflection of them, of their sense of worthiness. And so again, really practically in that moment, if we do receive the feedback, we can simply thank them for their perspective and we can work to depersonalize it or simply remind ourselves that this is more of a reflection on them and not about us at all. We can personalize and not internalize their opinion. The final thing I want to say, preemptively, if and when we have that friend, that family member who does say negative things, who does seemingly consistently have a hard time supporting us, right? That might not be the person, especially if the dream is new, especially if you're beginning your journey, to share your dream with. It is so important to have a group of people, much like everyone here today, that is in our corner, that is cheering us on. And know that each and every one of you, as you begin this journey of cultivating worthiness, pursuing your own dreams and your own desires, know that as many people, might be giving you or telling you that your dreams are unrealistic, you are going to be an inspiration for so many others. That's going to see in you the possibility that they want for themselves. And I know I am going to be cheering you along.
I love that. That is so good. That is so good, because everyone here, all 261,000 of us, so many of us, we do have people around us that question it or they don't get it, and calling that out, right? That someone else's doubts about your journey actually has nothing to do with you. It's a reflection of their own worthiness journey. And that's so important to remember. I see a lot of people clapping for that. Yeah, because it's just something that I think is so valid. And hearing that from you, Dr. Nicole LePere, that's a really, really big deal. I think that's going to be something for everyone to just hang on to tonight. Because, walking into this whole new journey, today through this live immersive event with Worthy the book, right? Going on this journey of building self-worth. And then we're going to start doing our Worthy workshops live for this next month as part of a bonus when you grab the book. And this is it's a real stepping into a moment of transformation and for a lot of people healing, for a lot of people hard things, like you said. And so just kind of calling out that distinction and being aware, I think is really, really, really important and insightful. So thank you so much for that. Thank you also for being here. Oh my goodness. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for the work you put out into the world. Can everyone put their hands together for Dr. Nicole LePere, holistic psychologist?
Thank you, Jamie. You were just such an inspiration and such a